we're really not going to get the results we want if we don't surrender.
Mm.
If we're not willing to surrender our mind, our will, our emotions,
Yeah.
to whatever the cause is, right? For me, it's the relationship with God. If I can't surrender in those areas, probably never really going to hit the level that I want.
What's up, friends? Rob Sevilla here, and I want to welcome you back to a brand new Spitting Fire podcast interview with my man all the way from Murfreesboro, Tennessee, Mr. Eric White. Eric, will you say what's up to everybody real quickly?
It's good to see everybody. Thanks for having me, Rob.
Absolutely, man. I'm excited about it. I know you're going to spit some serious fire today, but before we dive into that, I want to remind all of you the reason we do this. And I say this week after week after week, and I'll keep preaching it, that I live by a mantra, and I truly believe this, that you and I were created on purpose for a purpose. And isn't it about time that we start living on purpose? And I believe this as well, that there's a divine creator. For me, that's the God of the Bible, that he has put a leader in all of you. And I pray that something Eric and I talk about today goes past motivating you, but deeply inspires you to be what I know God wants you to be. So Eric, I'm so excited that you're with us today. And what I always like to start off with our guest is to get a 30,000 foot view, a Sports Center highlight, if you will, of your story and whatever you feel to share in that.
25 years of coaching people, man. It's that simple. I've been a coach my whole entire life. I love coaching people. I am laser focused even today on how to put high performing teams together, and how to help people get an increase in their life, their business, every area. Spent 20 something years coaching college basketball, and reached the highest levels. About 5 or 6 years ago, I stepped away from that career to go do something new. And now I'm primarily focused on helping people like you, helping teams like yours grow, essentially make more money. But really what we're trying to do is empower people.
Yeah.
Empower people to live their best life, and to bring glory to the kingdom of God, man. It's just through the way we live our life, through the way we do our business, through the way we lead our families. It's just it's deeper than just doing a transaction in my mind. And so that's today, as of this minute, that's what I'm doing. Right. Those are my, I guess, my talking points. And that just came out. I wasn't planned because I didn't know where you were going to go, but that's what I'm focused on.
Gotcha. Let me ask you this. In 25 years of coaching, what is something that rises to the top that you go, because of coaching, I've become this, and now it helps me in every area of my life, even what I'm doing now? Is there something that rises to the top you can think of?
I think this, man. I think, this is breaking news, I guess, in a sense. Like, even today, I had the revelation for people, everybody, we're really not going to get the results we want if we don't surrender. If we're not willing to surrender our mind, our will, our emotions, to whatever the cause is, right? For me, it's the relationship with God. If I can't surrender in those areas, probably never really going to hit the level that I want, right? It's not that I'm not living a good life, because I am. I have a great family, unbelievable wife, right? Doubled my income from what I've ever made in the past. Like, things are good. But I have this desire inside of me, man. I just can't not want better.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. As a coach, what is one thing you learned not to be? Right? I think we always talk about what we learned how to be. Was there something that you took away for 25 years of coaching that you go, man, I know as a leader, I don't need to be this way? Is there anything that you can think of?
No, that's a great question, man. I think a lot of people fall into the trap of trying to be something that they're not.
Wow. Yeah, that's good.
And sometimes it's a genuine pursuit of trying to do business with somebody or connect with people or be in a community. And it's just, we fall in this trap of trying to be something that we're not. And it eventually will fail, fall apart, crash and burn. or we'll become frustrated, burn out, whatever. And I
Well,
think, you
go
know,
ahead.
no, that's it, man. I think that's, if I think it's the best thing we can do. I think what I've learned is to become fully known, and to become fully known, it takes an integrity, it takes an honesty, not just with ourselves, with God, with you and I, just to, this is who I am, and to act with integrity in that space, so that we don't fall in that trap.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I've had this discussions with people before, that when there's incongruency with that, right? Knowing who you are, and more importantly, whose you are, and what I believe, that it leads to inconsistency in every area,
Yeah.
right? Like if you're trying to be something you're not, and there's that internal incongruency, it's going to ultimately lead to inconsistency. And it doesn't mean you won't make money. I just believe you'll never be fulfilled at the highest level until you're in alignment with that, in my opinion, divine assignment, right?
Yeah.
And so many
Good.
people are trying to live out other people's assignments, and it's
Mhm.
kind of what you're talking about now.
Yeah, I love that, man. That's good. It's good. I think it brings such peace when you can become fully known to yourself, to your God, to your family, just the most genuine, authentic version of you. A guy named Brad Lee, who some people may
Yeah.
recognize, runs the dropping bombs. I got to spend some time with him. Actually, I carried him from an airport run to see Coach Burt, and he just told me, he said, "Man, just be you, be genuine, be authentic with people, connect to them at a real level, and just push that out every day." He said, "You'll make plenty of money."
Yeah.
And it's so good.
And that's so interesting, which, by the way, side note, I'll chase this rabbit and come right back, I promise. So shoot it. But one of the reasons I started this podcast and got the name Spitting Fires, because I watched Bradley a couple of years back, and I love the whole, and I'm not as high tech as he is yet, going to get there. But I want, when somebody spits fire, to push a fire button like a flame,
Yeah,
So I love the whole
yeah,
dropping
yeah,
bombs
yeah.
thing.
That's
So I
good.
love some Brad Lee. By the way, Brad, if you ever watch this, would love to have you on the podcast. Right.
That's
All
right.
right.
Let's get it
Back to the
on
regular scheduled programming.
here.
Let me ask you this though: why do you think so many people are scared to be themselves? Why is that such a an epidemic in our culture?
What's a good question? Fear, perhaps, uncertainty, difficult circumstances. I think at times for me personally, it just was an unwillingness to step out. Trying to fit into a place where I felt like I had to fit in. Because I had to have the money, because I had to have a job, whatever, right? And I think for some people, it's not a problem. Some people can just go and be themselves,
Right.
right? And they really have no reservation about it. I think for other people, it's a challenge, you know? Um, so I don't know. I think it is an interesting question. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I love that, and want to stay here for a second, because I've even had this happen in my own life, and even in the industry that I'm in.
Yeah.
Nothing against where I used to be. It became very apparent that it just wasn't congruent, right?
Right.
We made it work for a season, doesn't make them bad, me better, or vice versa. It just means I didn't believe I could be my truest self. And so I tell people this all the time, and you tell me, Eric, if you agree, is that you could be doing the right thing in the right niche or niche, however you say it, the right opportunity in the right arena. You just may be in the wrong soil.
Yeah. It's good.
Right. And,
That's
and
really
and
good.
I love what you're saying, is because if you're in a soil that's not allowing you to be yourself, or I see Coach Burke say this a lot, to be where you're celebrated, not tolerated,
Yeah.
it's really hard to live on purpose. And I believe it's actually a countermeasure. It makes you more frustrated, more angry,
Hmm.
and then
Yeah.
it does. And if we're going to truly live on purpose, we need to be somewhere that life abundantly is being cultivated in
Yeah.
all areas.
Yeah. Yeah. We started going to church in Nashville called the Belonging Co. not too long ago,
Yeah.
about a year and a half ago. And as you're talking and sharing, I'm thinking of their ability to create a space.
Yeah.
They create space for you to really experience your own personal relationship with God, however you want it.
Sure.
It doesn't have to be a certain way.
Sure.
And I just think about the ability that you and I would have to build community around our idea that we're trying to monetize, by the way,
Sure.
how we could create a space where people could come to that and be themselves, be fully known,
Yeah.
and but still operate, still grow, still be challenged, still be coached.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
it's interesting. I think that's the people making the most money are doing that, by the way. The way, in my
yeah.
view,
And you
you
know
know,
what, what's funny about that is, because you'll hear church folk, they get negative when you talk about money and all of that. But what I have found is that the more truest version of myself, right? Meaning, for me, that's a different definition than maybe some people. For me, the truest version of myself is making his name great while serving and impacting as many people as possible. That I have found that when I do that, like sincerely do that, not make
mhm.
Rob's name great, but make his name great and then make an impact in people's lives, I have found that the income just follows. Have you seen that as well?
Yeah. So I studied a book by John Bevere called Multiplication, I believe is the name of it. I can't, or X or something.
Yeah.
I can't remember. The bottom line is this: when you take your gifting, your talent, according to John's perspective, when you take that and do kingdom work with it, God will bring the multiplication for you. It can't be from a selfish standpoint, though.
Right.
We can't be trying to build Eric White's kingdom.
Right.
But if I'm serving Rob with my giftings and talents in the marketplace, God will bring the multiplication if I do the work from a genuine perspective. Again, we're back to becoming fully known,
Yeah.
right? And so I don't know. I think that's a powerful concept that most people do miss. It's hard, even me up until just
Yeah.
recently. I didn't
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah.
Like I went to the market every day in a way where I was trying to generate money for my family, but I didn't go with it with that perspective. You know,
Mm.
I think it sets people free, honestly. If for me, it's helped relax me. It's taken away the striving as much as working is good. I don't know about the striving part. I think that's probably a negative for most people.
Sure. Sure. No, it's interesting you say that. I actually met with a pastor friend of mine several years ago, and it was a piece of advice that changed my life. I had kind of fallen into that, the more broke you are, the more pious you are, the more holy you are. And that's not necessarily maybe preached from the pulpit everywhere, but it's a very general concept that's out there, right? Maybe unsaid. And I remember sitting down with him, and he was a very successful entrepreneur, still is, and makes really good money and has done very well. And he said, "You'll preach your best sermons when you're financially free."
Mm,
Changed my whole life. And I thought, wait a minute, God's given me this 7-figure skill set and I'm living broke, right? And what the whole point of it was, you'll just preach from freedom. You
yeah,
won't preach for any other agenda. And
yeah,
it
that's great.
changed my life. And that goes along kind of with what we're talking about here, is that so many Christians, I believe, get into that trap that they think more broke means more pious or more
Yeah,
holy, when in reality, being a kingdom entrepreneur is a good thing, because now God's going to give you the resources through you just being you and you using those gifts and talents he's given you to fund the building of the kingdom.
yeah. I know the way I've studied this pretty intently the last couple of years, and I'm by the way, I'm not a pastor. I'm not a
Sure.
like a lot of people. I mean, but what I've come upon, I don't think that God wants us skeptical, broken, overweight.
Yeah.
I don't think we were built to live from a less than perspective. And skeptical, broken, overweight are all negative positions. I just don't
Mhm.
think, when God created us, I can't see that He thought, well, if I could just create a bunch of folks that were broken, overweight, and really
Yeah.
skeptical, that'd be ideal. So it just feeds into this concept of money. Really is just energy flowing. It is a tool for us to do what God intended us to do, which is to grow His kingdom here on
Yeah.
earth.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I am a former pastor, church planner, did ministry for over
Okay.
20 years.
Okay.
And I think a lot of Christians and use the fear of loving money because it's the love of money that's the root of all kinds of evil, right? It's not money, but it's the love of money. It's almost like they become fearful that they're going to start loving money more than Jesus. And what's funny about that, and maybe funny is not the best word, but what's interesting about that is we're not supposed to be fearful.
That's right.
So what happens is they live in that fear of the love of money that ultimately keeps them from financial success.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is we're going against what we've been told, that perfect love cast out all fear, right? And so I don't even think sometimes we see this and we really put it on paper and go, wait a minute, why am I fearing loving money, right? When that is actually against what's commanded anyways, to not be fearful, to not worry, to not have that anxiety, but we do it all the time, and that's okay, but it's not okay to have money.
So good. It's good. I think for me, so you got to remember, I was a college basketball coach.
Sure.
For 25 years, had no idea about business, had no idea how to make an outbound sales call, how to follow up. So I came to Coach Burt's world where that's the norm, right? In fact, you were expected to do it at a very high level. So the mindset towards money for me was a stubbornness to open my mind up and be coached to grow personally so that I could perform and produce. See? So I found myself at times blaming other things. God doesn't want me rich. God hates money. So I don't need to make those efforts. You see that? I don't know if that would speak to anybody, but like as you were talking, I'm just thinking how to relate this personally. Well, I'm not there obviously anymore. Make plenty of follow-up calls. I would call and talk to anybody in the world, try to sell them, right? And so it's just it's a low-level thought process, in my view, and it holds a lot of people back from really seeing the opportunity. For example, this is a good example. So I travel in Murfreesboro, and on these corners, people will get hired to hold these signs for mattress companies. I don't know if you have those in your community. They'll sit on the side of the road and they'll hold a sign, 50% off, come today, that kind of thing. And these guys are a little down on their luck. You can just tell visually, right? Not passing judgment. So I knew the owner of the store, and so I went to him and I said, "Now wait a minute. This guy's sitting in the rain, probably making $10 an hour for you. If he could just see the potential to go into the store, sell a mattress, he can actually make more money instead of holding the sign." See that?
Yeah.
It was powerful for me.
Yeah.
Because here's a guy who's holding a sign for a guy like me and you who's in the room selling, trying to provide at a higher level, making the ability to make more money. See, this guy holding the sign is limited. He's got $10. He's making $10 an hour. Probably going to make $100 that day.
Yep.
Right. You and I are going to sell one mattress and make a couple $100. I don't know what the commission is, but you get my point.
Sure. And what's interesting about that, I love the way that a guy that I follow, Myron Golden, online, he says that a lot of salespeople sabotage themselves because they see something as sales as doing something to people instead of something for people.
Yeah.
And that small perspective, like me, even in the industry I'm in, I know I'm making an impact. I mean, I just talked to a gentleman earlier who unfortunately has had tons of heart attacks, and single dad and down on his luck. And we get to pray with our clients. We get to encourage our clients. So for me, sales is something I'm getting to do for people, to impact them, to empower them, to get them the benefits they need. So I definitely love that. You talked about empowering people. Define that for me. What do you believe empowering people is?
Ooh, that's a good question. To be empowered is to have the skill set to be self-sufficient from a financial standpoint, to be operating in your giftings, talents, to even know what they are, and to have a mindset that says the whole world is filled with opportunity. How can I use those things to go create, innovate, which is what we were made to do. We were made to create. We were made by a creator to create here on earth. In my view, we're his representatives here on earth to collect, right? And so in that co-laboring relationship, we have to be able to dream. We have to be able to see situations not as they are, but as they could be. That's good right there.
Yeah.
I just called myself. I mean, so that's a different stance than I'm clocking in and I'm
Yeah.
working 5 and I'm going home. Now there's nothing wrong with it. I think in personal development, sometimes I find myself catching myself to not condemn people, because if you're 8 to 5 and you're working at a job that you love and your
Yeah.
family, this is not to say that that's wrong,
Right.
but those of us, there are people that are called to more, in my view.
Sure.
I can't not get up in the morning and chase opportunity. Can't not do it. Drives me. I just can't. Like if you told me even tomorrow, and it's Saturday, and I won't work officially on Saturday, but if you told me, Eric, you can't think about growth, or you can't think about how to help somebody, or you can't think about how to offer somebody an opportunity to do, you would drive me nuts. You see that?
Yeah. Yeah. I
I
see
don't
it.
know if I answered your question, but I may have talked around it, but those are, I, but I'm gonna have to get more defined on that because you challenged me there. I don't know that I.
Hey, no, I totally get it. Let me say this too, is that I believe a lot of times, because leaders never grow themselves,
Mm,
that they actually deflate or detour people, or
yeah,
instead of empowering them. And I know I've been one of those leaders before, where
yeah,
I thought I was leading well, but really, until I got into started really working on myself. And because I think many of us may be watching this, because different people in different spaces watch this podcast and listen to it as well, that they may be a natural born leader, if you believe that way, or if you don't believe. I believe, like me, I was naturally inclined to lead people, just with my personality. I'm a
yeah,
DI, I'm a DISC profile,
yeah,
and so it's just, I'm very charismatic in personality. It's just who I am. But that doesn't make me a good leader, right? That just may have leader potential, but I found myself in seasons of leadership where I actually depowered people, if you will, or whatever the correct word is there, but instead of empowering people. So with that said, let me ask you this: what makes a good leader or a good coach, if we want to use that terminology? What do you think a leader, like there's one trait, if you
Mhm.
will, they have to be a good empower of people?
God, it's not just me, but I think anybody that you study leadership under is going to tell you that service has got to be at the heart of that.
Yeah.
You got to feel like you're serving people. If I'm coaching you or you've given me authority to lead you in some kind of way, I gotta be able to approach that from a shepherd's mentality, a service mentality. I gotta say, what can I give up today personally that would bring me comfort or pleasure in order so Rob could get an increase? I
Yeah.
think that's leadership. You
Yeah.
got, I've been studying. I've gone back to Jocko Willett, who's the SEAL guy and they've written a couple different books. But
Yeah.
the leader is responsible for the performance. This is why it applies to me, because I'm a dad. I've got 3 teenage daughters. We're in a messy season of helping those young ladies raise up and get out of the house in the next few years.
Hmm.
So I'm analyzing, is what we're doing working, right? Am I being the dad? Am I being present? Am I right? Am I performing? And because I'm constantly analyzing that. And what I've learned is that we have a wonderful home, have a wonderful wife, 3 wonderful young ladies, and God's blessing us like crazy. Now, we're not going to Cancun every month. We're not driving in Lamborghinis or flying on private planes. We live in a 3-bedroom apartment, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, we're working our butt off to make this work. But at the end of the day, it is working. Now, if it weren't working, whose responsibility would it be? It'd be mine, not Coach Burt's, not my clients, not my wife, not the kids, because I'm the leader. Right?
Right. Yeah. And I like to say it this way, that I believe, and if you're watching this today, maybe you need to turn it up in the car or wherever you're listening to this, if you're watching this on YouTube, that the blaming posture that you're falling into is ultimately blocking your breakthrough.
100%. What's good,
Right.
Rob?
That's what Eric's saying today is we live in a culture that produces people that just want to blame.
Yeah.
It's got to be someone's fault but my own. But Eric is telling us today, we need to look in the stinking mirror. We need to own it. We need to take responsibility. And I believe the breakthrough that a lot of you are really seeking, if you're listening or watching this today, is on the other side of just stop blaming. And listen, I say this with a lot of grace. But even Eric, as someone who grew up and you know, child abuse happened to me. I was physically abused by a step parent, you know, at times. You know, I was single mom, grew up poor, food stamps, and there was a short season where I defaulted into that blaming, but I had to forgive. I had to stop blaming. And it was just awesome that when I did that, it's like things begin to happen in my life. Have you seen that in the people that you've coached, or maybe even in your own life?
Yeah, 100%, man. I've gone through seasons where I've tried to strong arm it, right?
Yeah.
Very much a controller. I'm very stubborn and selfish when I lean toward the carnal side of things. I mean, that's who I am. And so it really takes some mindful, conscious self-talk, self-proclaim, you know, just prophesying almost to myself, speaking almost daily for me to take that surrender and just give it to God and say, look, I'm going to give these areas up so that you can empower me to do what I need to do. I mean, but at the end of the day, I don't like the saying where it says nobody's coming to rescue me, because that's not true, right? For us faith-based guys. But at the end of the day, he's given us responsibility and he's entrusted us to steward these families well. So we're to provide safety, financial support, emotional support. We're his representatives in this household.
Right.
We don't have to, but the choice is we should step into those responsibilities and understand that it's our roles, nobody else's.
Yeah, and I'll take it a step further here for those that, if you're listening or watching today and you're faith-based, you got to stop using prayer as an excuse to not execute.
Come on, man.
Right? Or prayer as a crutch that's actually holding you back. And I've been guilty of it. Like everything I'm saying today, like the mirror's on Rob here, right? I've done this, and we're sitting there praying and praying and praying and praying and praying. And God's like, I've given you the 7-figure skill set. Go execute.
That's right.
Right. 2 years go by, 3 years go by. We're still doing 5 years go by. And then all of a sudden we get into that blaming. Well, God doesn't love me, or, you know, Eric's not doing this for me.
Right.
You know, and we tend, because of the society we live in, we have this posture of this all the time. Give me, you know, hands out, instead of just executing. Have you seen that as well?
100%. Yeah, we're blaming the pandemic. We're blaming, look, all these things are real, by the way. The pandemic was real. Life circumstances where you lose a family member or some other wanted, you know, you get sick personally. I mean, all those things are real.
Right.
You see a job change or some kind of policy change, or, you know, some kind of governmental overreach that changes the reality that we live in. But at the end of the day, it's our responsibility to see those things and to produce in the middle of. That's where the Navy SEAL training comes in, because those guys take the reality on the ground. They don't get into what it could be, what it's not, what it should be, this is a reality.
Right.
How can we let go of personal misery and ego to accomplish the mission? That's one of their key training techniques or concepts. And it's so powerful. It's ego, personal misery, comfort, pleasure. How can we turn those things loose? Because at the end of the day, I got to produce for these kids. If the pandemic closes Coach Burt's business down, if I get sick, or I don't even know, right? I'm not even going to try to speak all that, but you get my point. Like, if despite whatever circumstance comes, I am responsible for producing for the family. So whatever that reality looks like, that's where I got to step into that space and do. Now, here's where the relationship with God comes in. Because I've learned the best policy is for me to love you and love God, and then get out of the way of the impossible. Because that's where his specialty's in. He can do the impossible things that you and I can't. even though we want to. And so
Yeah.
I don't know. Those are just, I mean, those are real life things I've been working over the last 6, 9 months as I'm trying to be the best dad possible, show up every day in my job, serve our clients well, just be, just, I don't even know the word. I hate the word big time because it makes me want to throw up, but just be the best version of me, man, so that I'm operating in that space where people can get a benefit from interacting with me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's interesting you say that. Speaking of faith, and we'll just transition into that, is I've always taught something about being fully loved and fully accepted. And the non-Christianese way to say it would just be understanding who you are, but more importantly, whose you are.
That's right.
But one of the reasons I believe in the Christian faith, and I'd love for you to speak to this, is one of the things that's lacking in our industry. That's the insurance industry. That's the industry I'm in. And I've been telling other leaders that I believe a lot of times self-help is good, and I believe in it. And I'm a content junkie. And I mean, I listen to podcasts, read. I love to be in the room with people like Coach Burke and others, But more than that for me is this deep spiritual healing, because we live in a culture, I believe, Eric, that we're told to just cope with things, whether that's through vices, whether that's through substances. It could even be something as simple as success or money, right?
Yeah.
When what I believe, and this is one of the reasons I adhere to the Christian faith, and would love for you to share on this just for a second, is I believe because of my relationship with Jesus that I don't have to live my life just coping, but I can truly be healed, like deeply healed. So that way I don't chase love and acceptance and lesser GODs.
Yeah, come on, man. Yeah, an awareness of, I'm trying to think how Bill Johnson says it, an awareness of the inferior is acceptance of those things. And the inferior things are the things that are of the world. Your God didn't create you to live in those ways. That's, I spent some time in the Bethel School of Supernatural Ministry recently.
Yeah.
What I've learned is the kingdom of heaven can exist on earth. That's how we're taught to pray, right? Like kingdom come as it is heaven on earth. Right? We're the avenues for that. We're supposed to be the representatives here on earth so that can flow. Otherwise, how's it going to get here? That's
right.
We're created is the way that I understand it. So we can't live with an inferior approach and the mindset that you discussed and let that happen. It won't flow. Our mind's on the inferior.
Yeah. No, I definitely love that. And a lot of times, and I know, and I said in my industry, I believe it's missing in a lot of industries. I love the conferences we do. I love going to events, but I do think for people that do adhere to that, and even people that don't, there is, I call it more than self-confidence. I call it Christ confidence, right? And here's why, here's why I adhere to it. Because, and you've seen this even in your own life and probably the people that you've coached, and I've said it as a minister and a pastor for years, if it's just totally self-confidence, the same self that tells you how wonderful you were this morning in the mirror and you pumped yourself up and got ready to go, by lunchtime is the same self that's tearing you down, telling you you're no good. But when it's Christ confidence, it's you're loved, you're redeemed, right? You're chosen, you're adopted, if I can use some Christianese words here. So I definitely, I definitely love what you're saying there. Let me ask you this, because we're speaking from a faith-based perspective. What do you believe winning is God's way? Give me a definition of that, or what winning is God's version for your life.
Yeah, that's a great question, man. I think winning is loving God, loving people, letting God do the impossible things in our life so that he could be glorified through prayer. I think using our giftings and our talents to build and scale the kingdom so that people are brought into the kingdom and their lives are improved. That's, at the end of the day, that's why we were created, was that. We were created to co-labor on earth, to bring the kingdom of heaven here, to help people get an increase in our life, to join in relationship with Jesus. That's why we were created. That was the intention of God, in my view. That's why we're here. Now, we're going to have jobs and we're going to have responsibilities in the here and now, and how we do those is important. How we produce, how we represent Him in those spaces. But at the end of the day, man, if I've got you on the phone, I need to close you on some Medicare. Some family needs to eat, right? So I think Christians sometimes get sideways. They're like, man, I got to love and pray for this guy. No, close him down, man. You're on the phone call with the guys. Told you he's interested.
Yeah.
Follow up properly, professionally, offer, right? I mean, do business in the marketplace with an edge, with a passion, with a conviction. It's okay, right? Don't warm and fuzzy this up.
Yeah, it's like don't be so spiritually minded in your sales presentation that you're no earthly good, right? And the earthly good is I still got to make a sale, right? I know
right,
I've been on both sides of the track, so trust me, I don't want to be a hypocrite here. I've been on both sides.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's hard to know sometimes, man. I think now the thing I want to hit on about the conferences, because I had this, I wanted to say, I think we can over medicate with information sometimes.
That's good.
I think you and I can sidestep responsibility and pay for conferences and coaching that we don't really need as a way to medicate, as a way to hide in the middle of that, so that we don't have to go do the things that we're really supposed to be doing.
Sure. Well, it goes back to that coping mechanism. We can use conferences. We can use this extra training as a way to cope, make ourselves feel better, get that kind of release, if you will, if I can use that word. But nothing ever really comes out of it. So I agree.
I was on the phone with the guy that I was coaching him, and he's trying to step into this space and he can't figure it out. And I said, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to be as honest with you as I can tell you. You got to figure out something to sell. Sell your car, sell the dishes in your cabinet. I don't know, man. You have got to sell something.
Right.
Period. He said, well, no, you didn't hear me. Listen to me. You have to find something to sell to generate revenue. So these discussions, right? Because what he's really wanting to do is step into this arena where he wants to speak and coach, and that's fine, right? But the money, the revenue that's generated now, so that he can have the time freedom to go do that, is what's necessary.
Yeah. So yeah, I've heard it said this way, Eric, that a lot of times faith-based people, and listen, if you're a Christian today, we're not picking on you, right? You can send the hate mail to Eric White at ilovehatemail.com. But I'm not doing that. I just think a lot of times, because I have a lot of faith-based people that watch and listen to this, but even if you're not faith-based, I think some of these things apply to you as well. But from a faith-based perspective, I hear people all the time, God's going to do the supernatural, and it sounds sexy and it sounds awesome. But I've heard it said this way, and I've always tried to understand it this way, that supernatural is just inviting God's super into my natural. So what's the natural? The natural is I got to pick up the stinking phone, right? And I got to call some people. The natural is I got to go to people's houses. The natural is whatever arena you're in, you still have to do the natural, but every day you're praying for God to do the super, to combine and to collaborate with your natural. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I think you've got to, that's good. That's real good, Rob. I think, there's a pastor up in DC, Mark Batterson. I think he says, pray like it depends on God, but you work like it depends on you.
Sure.
There has to be both, man.
Yeah.
I was taught, or the way I understood as a kid, I grew up Southern Baptist, right? And we are spending a lot of time in this space, but that's who I am.
Yeah, same.
But somehow I got from God's going to provide for you that I didn't have to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I was just going to sit on the couch and watch Auburn football and eat chicken wings and just, rock it out, man.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know, I'm not blaming anybody.
Sure.
But that's what I heard. And when I heard that, I was like, okay, because I'm kind of a lazy guy anyway by nature. Like, I mean, if you give me a chance, I'll lay around.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people fall into that trap.
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's easy for us to, and by the way, this happens in multiple interviews in Tupelo. If you don't know this, I think you've told me you have some relatives not too far from here.
Yeah.
But the train goes through our town about 50 times a day. So if you hear the train in the background, that's what it is. Okay, back
Yeah.
to the regular scheduled programming here. But yeah, I think so, right? And I think what happens is we use prayer. I think we use this. I'm from a charismatic background, and so a lot of times I've seen charismatics use the term, supernatural, that God's just going to supernaturally give me a basket of Benjamins in front of my door.
Yeah.
God's going to supernaturally bring me whatever is necessary, when in reality, God is waiting for us to do the work. Right. See, and here's where I believe some of the confusion gets set in, is that we tend to think working in the natural is somehow performing for God, but it's not a salvific thing. It's not a salvation. We don't work for our salvation. I've always taught people to work from your faith, not for your faith.
Good, Rob.
Okay. Yep. So that's faith, but God wants us to work for something when we're here, right? We got to go do the work. So I think sometimes those waters get muddied. And the reality is that when you learn to work from your faith, that's a catalyst for you to go work for something here on this earth, right? Living on purpose requires you to work not only from your faith, but also for something in regards to the financial side of things. And it's not that God won't provide supernaturally. I believe that 100%, but it's not an excuse just to be lazy.
Yeah, during the pandemic, our business struggled like a lot of people, right? During the pandemic, early on. And so I made 100 outbound calls a day manually. I didn't use a call dial or anything like that. I mean, I never stopped, and many times I left 90 voicemails.
Sure.
I did it because something would spin off of that activity organically. I might get a call back, or somebody random would call.
Yeah.
Or you know what I'm saying? You can't just getting into action spins off opportunity. I'm a huge believer of that.
Sure.
So and that's what I did every day. I just knew that 90 people were, I was going to leave 90 voicemails, and I get creative with it and have fun with it, and so, but that's how, I made it successfully. And what that learned was just this love of the process.
Right. Yeah. And I'll say this, as in this moment, if you're listening or watching this today, it's simply just taking massive imperfect action. That's the way that I define it. And I'll give you an example. I hate the phone. I'm just going to be honest with you. I hate it. I'm a people's guy. I love the energy in the room. You could go ask me to preach to 5,000 people on the fly, and I'm like, yes. You could ask me to call 100 people on the phone. I'm like, no. Right. But when all this stuff went down, I had to pick up the phone, and I had to take this massive imperfect action until I got decent and good at it.
That's good, man.
So now, fast forward X amount of months, years later, now it doesn't bother me as much. I pick it up and go, I'm just as confident, but it took me taking that first step, no matter how imperfect it was, no matter how much I flubbed through things. And so some of you watching today, it's just simply your breakthroughs on the other side of taking that massive imperfect action until you get good at it.
If you're in sales, get a list of 50, 60 people, leads that have been given to you, or you bought or whatever.
Sure.
And call them jokers.
Yeah.
If you want to know, get on the phone, man. There's no other way to describe the sales process to get people, is you just have to pick up the phone.
Yeah.
It's not going to be perfect. You are going to puke on yourself. So you're going to mess it up. It doesn't matter. It's a rep. Just move to the next thing. You're going to have some people say, you're going to have some people hang up on you, but you're going to find 3 to 5, maybe more people a day that really want to do something, and they're going to like you. You're going to like them.
Sure.
And it's kind of like playing golf, man. You get to the 18th hole and you birdie 18. You're like, man, I'm playing again tomorrow.
And it's funny you say that, because I can't tell you how many people on the phone that we've helped that tell us they love us.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So the person that was rude and a butthole, you get a couple of those I love yous, and it just puts fresh wind in your sails to keep going. And that's anything, whether it's phone calling, whether that's business to business. The reality is, I believe we're all in sales in some form or fashion, right?
Yes,
and some of us are just not getting enough reps in every single day. and then we're blaming. We're falling into that blaming. That's a reoccurring theme that keeps coming up through this interview. But so I totally agree with you. Let me ask you this. What's one leadership principle that you've learned throughout your life, coaching, what you're doing now, or other seasons that you go, I've really learned this, I've leaned into it, and I lead others from? Is there one that just really comes to mind?
Well, I think service has got to, again, I think service has got to be at the heart of, you got to have a servant's mentality to lead properly. But then I think the other thing, you got to do the do, man.
Yeah.
If I'm going to try to lead you through a difficult, challenging circumstance, you got to see me doing the do. Now, I may not be doing it perfectly, but I'm doing it, and I'm out front.
Sure.
So if I'm training you during this period of the pandemic, if you come in and see me sitting over in the corner fiddling around with something and not getting on the phone, and I go, I mean, you need to make 80 phone calls a day. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're looking at me like there's no chance I'm doing that. You're not doing it. Right?
Yeah.
But if you see me on the phone, you see me making mistakes, you see me celebrating wins, I mean, you see me closing people, right? You're like, okay, let's go. And then we can improve our skills over time together. So I think, the other thing that's really, I've gotten clear on vocabulary lately that I really like is I learn, I teach, and I build community.
That's
If
good.
I can do that every day long, you don't even have to pay me for it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think a leader is constantly learning, he's constantly teaching, and he's constantly building community.
Yeah.
I think that's so. I mean, those are just some thoughts. You're not going to find any of that in the Webster's dictionary, but
right. So let me ask you this, because breakthrough is one of those cliche words. You've heard me say it a little bit. It can kind of get a little cliche. It's kind of a sexy thing to say. Breakthrough. It's like a trigger word. What is a breakthrough in your own life, whether that's spiritually, professionally, personally, that you're willing to share? Was there a defining breakthrough moment in your life that you go, I know this was a catalyst for me to change and become the person I am today?
I think the one I'm going through right now is the idea of surrendering. I recently learned that that the salvation part of my faith tells me that I've gotten the eternity took care of. Like I'm going to heaven. All right, got that done. I'm still here though, right? Like I've still got to live it out. I don't know when I'm going to go to heaven, but at some point I am.
Right.
But what does that mean for here and now? So I started getting curious. Well, God intends for us to be healed at the point of salvation in every area, heart, and in our mind, our will, and emotions. It's a complete healing that you got that's made available to us, and that was never explained to me that way.
Sure.
So I'm learning what it means to surrender in those areas so God can really get in there and do his thing. That's in the last few weeks as we've gone through that, man, I'm not even the same dude I was a month ago. I'm just because of that process. It's doing a work in me. And it's so that when I heard that teaching, it messed me up. And I'm 51. I've been a Christ follower my whole life, by the way. When I was 6 years old and they were dunking me in the right, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And so it's not like I've been oblivious to it. But I'm sitting in this teaching, and it's almost as if the curtain, like just, shoo, I'm like, whoa, what's that? And so, but it took, I chase it, man. I'm chasing knowledge. I'm chasing growth. I'm probably too intense with it. But my wife says, like, man, can we just go eat? Just relax, have fun? I'm sitting at the restaurant analyzing how the server treated us and taking a growth strategy out of it. She's like, man, you just come. And I said, I can't.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think that's something I'm walking out now. It's a huge development for me.
Yeah, and you could definitely tell, like as you're talking about it, the passion in your voice, just the passion on your face. I could definitely tell it was a transformative moment for you. I ask everybody that comes on the podcast this as we get ready to wrap up today. And man, you've brought some serious value today. You've been spitting some fire, my man. And but if there was one word you could use to describe Eric White, what would that one word be?
Ooh. That's a good question, man. You have really stumped me, which is hard to do. Curious.
So being curious as a leader, how has that contributed to your success?
Man, my mind is wide open right now because I'm in search of being who God created me to be. I'm trying to really step into that and to surrender in those areas where I can really help you, whoever, right? Like that really is my driving passion.
Sure. No, I love that. And I think so many people stop being curious.
Mm-hmm.
And I was teaching this the other day at a men's retreat. And, you know, we've heard the term secondhand smoke, you know, is deadly for you. Like actually, they say, experts say it's more deadly for you, secondhand smoke. I believe secondhand religion is deadly.
Come on, man.
And what I mean by that is so many people just go to church, settle for whatever the pastor says, and it's secondhand. And that's nothing against pastors, because I used to be one and have taught the Bible for years, but that's not enough to really cultivate that life abundantly, right? That it has to be a personal thing between you and your God. For me, that's the God of the Bible. And for you watching or listening, that may be something different. But the reality is, don't settle for secondhand religion, if you will. So I definitely love what you shared today and what you brought to the table. As we wrap up, I get people that are in the insurance business, obviously, because that's the business, the arena that I'm in. So a lot of people watch and listen to this in that arena, but I got pastors and real estate agents and whoever that listen and watch this. What if there's somebody out there today who just wants to reinvent themselves? Let's just use that word.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're stuck in an arena or a career they just settled for, but they know they were created, destined for more. What's something practical that Coach Eric White would give us to kind of help us break out of that and begin that reinventing?
Man, I think the renewing of the mind is a powerful concept. And I think the most practical thing I would tell somebody outside of the prayer component is get curious about something and go to the bookstore and get a book about it and start learning and allow yourself to be open to how that would impact you. I started that process a couple of years ago because I got a little frustrated about where I was at. And I just started learning about different stuff. I bought the Wall Street Journal and I read stuff in there that I know nothing about. And I do it just because I'm trying to learn something I don't know anything about to see if there's something there. I think that's something practical I'd leave somebody with. Like if you first of all, you're not stuck.
Yeah.
Most people, right? You're not. You may be telling yourself you are, but I promise you're not. There is opportunity out there, but I would, you know, I heard Gary Vee, I keep quoting other people, but Vanderchuk said one time, you got to really know yourself.
Yeah.
Self-awareness may be the number one key is because you got to understand and be honest with yourself about who you are at that moment so that you can untangle the mess that you feel like you're in.
Yeah. No, I think it's really good stuff today, Eric. And, you know, I'm just going to look in the camera and close this out today. And if you're listening or watching this, I just want to remind you again, we do this because there's some of you that are listening and watching who are just about to give up. You're frustrated. You're just broke down, if you will. As Eric said, you think you're stuck. And I pray that something that we said today puts fresh wind in your sails.
Mm-hmm.
We've spoken a lot of life over you. So whether you're watching this or listening to this, I pray that it just translates well through the camera or through the podcast audio version. And I want to remind all of you to please like, comment, subscribe below, share this with someone who needs to hear this today. There's somebody that needs to hear this message, because it could be a game changer for them, not only in their professional, but also maybe even more importantly in the spiritual. Turn on the notifications. That way you're notified every time we drop fresh content like this. God bless all of you guys for listening and watching today. Make it an awesome day. That's the hard part sometimes, is just to make that old saying of lemonade out of lemons, but make it an awesome day, and we'll talk to you soon.
See you guys.